This is The Morning Shift.
Hayden Brown, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I'm very excited for this chat. We've just had a little talk before we got into this. Shifters, I'm going to introduce our person on the couch today. I've been watching his social media for a while, and I watch a lot of people chat online, and I just thought, I like this guy's style. I like his spirit. I like what he has to say, and thank you for your time today, because I know that shifters are going to really enjoy it too. And the best part is we don't really know where it's going.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that for what it's worth, because I do tend to keep a little bit of a low profile. So I appreciate the kind words.
I see you, brother. Okay, so let me do this quick intro. Hayden Brown is a human behavior specialist and leader in root cause psychology and behavior change. What a title. I'm jealous. I'll talk about that later, because I might want to move into that after I do this podcast thing. Anyway, his work is shaped by his own early life challenges with self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and the long patterns that impacted his relationships and sense of self-worth. Well done. This is greatly written, by the way. I'm listening. These experiences led on a journey to question what truly drives human behavior and why people stay stuck in the same patterns, despite being desperate to change. Hayden sees himself as a lifelong problem solver and believes every challenge has a root cause, a problem behind the problem. His approach focuses on uncovering the why behind emotional challenges and long-term behavior patterns, resolving the root cause of the unconscious drivers rather than managing surface symptoms. Amen. Let me hear you. That's a bit of us, Shift Nation. Hayden works with clients globally, from everyday individuals through to business leaders, celebrities, and professional athletes. Many are high-performing on the outside, but internally navigating challenges like self-sabotage, relationship struggles, past trauma, and a lack of fulfillment. Hayden's mission is to educate and empower others to break free from their long-term patterns so they can live with great clarity, direction, and purpose. Come on! Come on! Shifters, don't say I don't know what you need, okay? Because we all need it, and it's usually just what we need. Hayden, thank you for what a great intro. That was great. Thank you.
No, look, it's my pleasure to be here.
Awesome, bro. Awesome. Before we get into hopefully what is going to be an enlightening conversation for people listening and engaging, obviously, but healing as well. I'd love to put that out there. The Hayden we have on the couch right now, I always find this, often you'll go to things and people ask what you do. Often, and culturally, Māori Pacific, even other cultures, we like to ask who you are. So we'll get to what you do, of course, but could you let our audience know now, Hayden, who's Hayden Brown and how did you kind of get here? What's your story? And as fast or as long as you like that to be.
Yeah, sure. And I'm sure it'll go down many angles, as we spoke about earlier, right? We can hit the audience with some deep insights. 100%. So, look, I'm a father. I was going to say husband, but technically not married yet. But I'm a husband. I got a fiance. Got a beautiful fiance.
You're committed.
I'm committed. That's the point I was trying to
committed,
make.
taken, and yes.
Yes, disclaimer. No, so I've got 3 beautiful kids. I love business. I love people and understanding. What really drives and inspires and gives them that sense of direction and purpose. I think ultimately, as you beautifully included in the bio, is I consider myself a problem solver. So I've worked across various health roles, industries. I've done personal training, nutrition. Obviously, the work I do now is in what's called depth psychology, and really getting to the bottom of the patterns and the challenges that keep so many of us stuck. But across my life, I've always considered myself a problem solver in a variety of roles or leadership positions.
Absolutely, I think, and it's a special role that you've taken on, and it's one that I can tell you have a huge drive and passion for. What was the genesis of Hayden saying, "I want to help people solve their problems, and heal and move forward and live a full life"? Because I often find when I talk to people like you, it's not really. It was kind of always there. But is there a genesis moment for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think, like so many of us, it starts from our own challenges, our own internal blocks or self judgments, our own questioning. So, I would be being disingenuous if I was to say that it's always been about, how can I help others? First, it's really the origins have been about, who am I? What is my place in the world? So, I think from a very, very early age, like so many of us, it was, who do I need to be to fit in? What is my place in the world? I have, vivid memories from primary school, intermediate, college, and even earlier in my professional career of, how do I need to show up? How am I expected to show up for others? To receive love, to offer value, etc. And so I think, obviously I'm passionate about helping people really uncover the reasons behind why we get stuck in these patterns, because I think that is such, I think a lot of the times people focus on surface level motivation. We setting goals is obviously wise, but are we setting goals that are true to us, or are they sort of borrowed goals or someone else's goals? We're speaking beforehand about that episode on sort of, is this success masking pain that you guys recently did?
Absolutely.
And, what a topic. I mean, my average client is in many regards very successful, whether it's, wealth or family or business, etc. Or maybe they just love their role. But in many regards, there is a deep pain or lack of fulfillment that comes from that, because so much of our success is born from, or at least integrated with, what we're trying to run away from, where we feel we might have failed in the past, or, where we are holding on to moments where we felt we weren't smart enough or did the wrong thing. But very much these early life experiences, for all of us, frankly, are instrumental in both what we value and who we truly are. And what shapes our values and purpose, but also the patterns that we can get caught up and stuck in, and then ultimately keep us in those same cycles. So that's what I love, and I'm human, and so I've had my own challenges with that, and so it's first of all been a journey to understand my own self, and then some health challenges I had along the way.
Absolutely. And just to preface this, Whānau, we had an exciting chat that we didn't know where we were going to go with this conversation. We're just going to go with the wind,
yes.
And I want to probe, and you might prod us and things like that. Where I feel to start is, I think something relatable to a lot of people potentially listening is this kind of idea of, I'm an adult now and I've arrived at this moment and this point, and for whatever reason, if I feel damaged, if I had to go through things as a child, as an adolescent that no one should have had to go through, it's now my problem as an adult, and I'm trying to navigate that and fix those things. It's kind of to the point around the is ambition really a mask for us, and is trauma driving us to go out and do? But in your experience, and it's such a long-winded way of asking this, sorry, bro, but in your experience, what are some examples of adults coming to you talking about their past and reconciliating the healing that they need to hear, or what they like? How do you move past something that never had an apology, or how do you get somewhere? How do you heal or let go or press through or march on?
Absolutely.
And so is there any case studies you give, or do you, what's your thoughts around that kind of topic? And sorry if I haven't really asked that properly, but you kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I think again, we're both open to where this goes, and et cetera. So maybe if I sort of reverse engineer that, or work backwards, I think again, sort of, my average client in many regards, I work with clients from all walks of life, but in many regards, they're people who have, in some regards, reached the destination of where they thought they needed to be, whether it's they've finally built this business, or they've finally got the girl, they finally wrote the best-selling song, whatever that is, that they've finally got there, and they come to me because they recognize that there is this, whether it's this insatiable perfectionism or this OCD that they can channel in a particular area, or this deep sense of lack of self-worth, of which, how successful do I need to be to compensate for that, right? So, the average person that reaches out to me, they've achieved, or at least they're moving towards a meaningful destination, but they're recognizing the way in which they're going about it, or some of that fuel source is also intertwined with a lot of pain. And that perhaps we could say that pain, or those trauma responses, coping mechanisms, there's diminishing returns, at this point. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, for the listeners, I mean, again, I don't even like using the word successful, because, what is success? And interestingly, I would probably also say, and, many people would understand this, those who often appear the most externally successful, whether it's wealth or finance or business, etc., again, oftentimes internally they are really really battling. And so, my average client, they are carrying certain behavior patterns that aren't serving them and where they want to be, or oftentimes they've achieved an end destination and they go, man, this was who I thought I needed to be for my father, for others, for society, or this, this academic pursuit maybe was to compensate for me not believing in myself or holding on to this idea that I haven't been smart enough my whole life. And again, I'm not one, perhaps like Big Dave, who I see you've had on, to encourage people to dwell on or play the victim. I mean, that is not the most meaningful way to move through these things. But it is acknowledging that the current way that this pain is internalized is holding them back. Now, again, deep dive here, and I'll let you direct this from here, but to get to sort of where you got to with that final question is, where do we go if we never got that apology, whatever that is, or there is this pain, there is this trauma. And this is going to be a whole conversation itself, of course, Jordan, but I mean, ultimately it comes down to our perceptions and how we perceive and internalize our experiences. Two people could go through the same event. One individual could perceive that as an opportunity for growth. The other individual could perceive that as, the worst thing that ever happened to them. Oftentimes we go through an event, we might lose our job, we might be made redundant, whatever that is. We think this is the worst thing that's ever going to happen to me. How am I going to provide for my family? And then weeks, months, years later, we've empowered ourselves, or we've taken different direction, or that finally was the motivation for us to find what we do love, or take that new role. And then we can have a bit of a perception shift, and we can actually go, was that event as bad as what I may have originally perceived it? And so the truth is, it's not what happens to us, but how we perceive it. And I teach people to be resourceful with their perceptions and how they perceive themselves and their place in the world, because the stories that we tell ourselves will shape what we hold on to, and thus what we take action on.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, real quick. Sorry, Hayden, just in putting myself in there. I have to ask this question now because I want it to relate to something you've just said. Real quick, I have a perception, and that perception is that some of the best storytellers, and this is something that I learned really early on in radio, and it kind of made itself more and more apparent as we go. Some of the best storytellers are the ones that work so hard to be hiding some of the things that are inside them, right? So there's a real correlation between great storytellers and broadcasters and something that they try extra hard, and that's why their stories have that extra zest that makes people easier for people to be able to relate to their story, because they go over and above, because there's something that they're trying to mask, or something that that they don't want people to know or see. And I don't like that perception, because for us, everyone, there could be a real kind of talented person who doesn't have that much damage and isn't trying to hide or anything like that, but that's generally kind of like an understanding amongst broadcasters that's the case. That you work so hard.
Help me understand that a little bit more, because there'll be something to what you're saying there. I mean, I haven't worked with clients with that dynamic before, but I work a lot with lawyers, engineers. You see certain patterns,
totally,
right?
Common themes, or
exactly.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not one to stereotype, but
That's you, Matua. So why are you trying to take him off the path?
Yeah.
So you weren't.
That's me. I'm definitely a stereotype.
We're about to get into that later.
Now, see, you're starting to challenge me. I like this. Yeah,
Mike, what I wanted to ask is, what came to my mind first, and I don't think this is what you were meaning, but it might be another meaningful example, or it also might be true as well, is you weren't referring to broadcasters being able to bring those stories out of others? I mean, that's probably true as well, but you were
more about telling a story, the ability to be able to tell that story in a way that has people engaged in it comes from a place where they are so good at it because they're so good at telling a story or telling their story in a way that doesn't involve a lot of who they are, if that makes sense. So there's the ability to create a character, the ability to hide what is in their soul, to be able to tell the story. There's a lot of,
I got a lot of thoughts. So
unleash, because when I first started out in the industry, I was like, this is going to sound super arrogant, but I was like, well, I don't feel like I have that like massive craters or holes.
But also what you're talking to happens in a lot of the workforce, right? It's a boss who's highly entrepreneurial and goes out and he can spin all those plates, but it's relatable outside of just
totally
what media.
These common themes and these some of the most solid and successful people are basically what you were saying before.
That tension between giving everything and still giving nothing is
totally
quite interesting.
And also, it's interesting when you think about that, and I wonder if this is the part that you, if this did relate to you yourself, like hypothetically, if perhaps maybe there's that sort of strength part of it, or the part that serves you, which is being able to connect with people and tell that story and offer them wisdom, but maybe there's a sense of disempowerment or not expressing or sharing your own truth or your own greatness as part of that. Maybe it's a bit more value to them.
Yeah, not me, but for other people, yes.
Exactly.
I see where you're heading with this, Hayden. No, absolutely. No.
Getting straight into it, of course,
Get
is
ready,
free therapy session here.
Absolutely.
So where did that first start?
When I first started out in broadcasting, I remember one of my bosses saying to me, I was producing a show, right? And I remember one of my bosses saying, the reason why these people are so talented is because they're so broken. And they try so hard to put everything together, but that's what makes their storytelling that little bit better. And that's why people hold on and they don't get out of their cars. They need to hear the end of the story because it's told so well. And it generally is someone hiding behind this persona that they've built through broadcasting. And I was like, and I think for me, I was disappointed because I never wanted to have a persona. I wanted people to know who I was.
Yes.
And I did, and if that meant I couldn't be successful through whatever I did, that seemed disappointing to me because I didn't feel broken.
He was new hot guy.
You don't have to say that.
No, that's that.
Yeah.
No, but that's where that's the dissonance that you're talking to.
Yeah.
Like, you've created this version for me. I'm actually a producer. I'm actually Mark.
Yeah.
I'm actually real. And then you work for the co-hosts who were massive at the time, the biggest breakfast show in New Zealand. But it was always that kind of divide for you.
Yeah, and I always felt disappointed that I would never really make much of myself because the theory that was in the radio industry or in media in general was you've got to be a little bit broken to be really good at what you do and make the big money and be the star. And I don't think I ever wanted to be necessarily the star, but I did want to be able to exist in that realm.
Well, I assume you did want to succeed in
I wanted
that
to
realm,
succeed
right?
in the realm, yeah.
And so that strategy, even though it has trade-offs, served a purpose, right?
Totally, yeah.
Because that's what that's what ultimately this all comes down to. There's a strategies, coping mechanisms, trauma responses to help us achieve a certain pain, help us navigate ourselves in the world. There's I'll give a quick story and then I want to relate it back to you, okay, Mark. But one thing that or one key part of my story, I spoke before about, school, high school, and not really understanding my place in the world is, a big part of that is, I, like many of us, you want to fit in and, with the cool kids in the social hierarchy, right? And I always felt that, myself relative to the jocks or the sportos, that I couldn't really, get in with them, right? And I couldn't connect on that. Now, retrospectively, in hindsight, and this is something we can circle back to, ironically, I didn't actually value sport. That wasn't particularly my thing. So first of all, there's a inner conflict there of me trying to be someone that I'm not. But
and why was that?
Well, to fit in, to be accepted, to be loved, right? I mean, we all want a place in the world, and I think especially in these environments, whether it's school or the workforce, it's not as if we it's not the same dynamic where we're choosing the quality connections in our life. We show up, the same people are in our class for better or worse. And so I think there is this additional metric on how do we navigate this challenging time for many of us. But where I'm going with this is, I learned very early on that I wouldn't, and this is interesting because it circles back to, me being a problem solver, and if I was to think, well, I have strengths in that area, I hope. So much of that is from, who do I need to be, what problems do I need to solve to give value to others, to fit in for others. And that evolved over my life, but the first iteration of it was humour. And so it was very much, all right, I can't be the best at sport. I was overweight at the time. Maybe I can't be, the most good looking, but maybe I could be the funny guy, and maybe I could turn that up and connect with others on that. And a lot of that would be, self-depreciating jokes, and just focusing on trying to offer that value to others. And so relating that story back to you, Mark. I mean, I would challenge you to go even earlier, where yes, it's clearly relevant at the start of your broadcasting career, but I would actually say even earlier prior to that, very likely childhood. The two most common sort of dynamics or times of our life I find is relationship to parents or family, or school or early life experiences. But what benefit did you get in earlier life from telling these stories? And obviously I don't know enough about the stories yet, but is it, trying to get a laugh out of someone like me? Is it more trying to bring them up, trying to make someone else feel better about themselves? Is it trying to, in fact, I was going to say, is it almost trying to bring you up a little bit more to be seen a certain way? But we sort of covered that isn't the case. So the best question to ask is how was it serving you? What benefit did you get out of it? Yes, there's a cost to it.
Yeah.
I think, sorry, I'm just going to guide this conversation, okay? Because
what do you know that I don't know?
Yeah, so Matua Marc was adopted, found amazing parents, him and his siblings. But I feel like we've unpacked a lot of that, and we can keep unpacking that. But I think what you shared on last week's show, Mark, I'd love to hear his thoughts about the child revisit, because I think it's all one and the same.
Please.
Yeah, I'll fast forward through the story because everyone would have heard it already. But basically what happened is my wife has been in Japan with my youngest daughter, and basically I've had the house to myself with my 18-year-old, and he's a gamer. We've kind of just been doing our own thing. And I actually got to the first point in my life that I can remember where I was actually bored of going on social media. And so I put the phone down for the first time. Usually it's my wife nagging me, like, get off your phone. And I'm like, and then I'm going to do jobs. And it feels like it's a forever moving conversation that goes on in my head. There's always talking going on. There's always, it's this, it's that, or social media, blah, 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 what I've got for work. And it felt like it was Sunday night. I lay on my bed. I had all my stuff prepped for the show coming up in the week. I was sick of being on social media. I didn't want to watch anything on TV. So I sat down and I lay on my bed, had the lights out, had music playing. And I wasn't tired. I didn't drift off or anything, but I specifically saw a younger version of me at our homestead back in Gizzy come up to me and just was like fascinated and like started talking to me. And he was really polite. He was a bit shy, but polite. He knew I was an older version of him. He looked at my car and he was like, "Oh, whoa, is that our car? Whoa, you're awesome. Do you own that?"
Shout out LDV,
Yeah, and I don't own it. Thank you, LDV. But he was so impressed by it, and he reached out and he grabbed my hands. He goes, "Whoa, we're big. Like this is super cool." And I got this real warm feeling of a younger version of me. I think I was about 5 or 6. Was really impressed with what he saw, but then this like feeling of complete kind of sadness dropped over me, and I was like, because he started to ask some things of me that I was like shocked by, and one of them was, you were a chosen person, like you had gifts that you really treasured, and one of them he brought up was, I used to sit on the front of the motorbike, cold in the morning, freezing cold, and Dad used to shoot along, around the paddocks and stuff, and I was freezing cold, but I had the mental capacity to think of a warm place and be able to warm my body and not suffer from the cold. And I had a real kind of connection to my brain and being able to get through pain and not have to, this. And he was like, "Where's that belief gone?" And then there was another thing he brought up was around running. And he's like, "Remember, how we run?" And I felt myself running again as a 5-year-old, and the freedom and the wind and how I could run forever. And man, when it was cross country day, like that was it. In my maths class, like cross country, I'm winning every single time. Doesn't matter. And I used to enjoy it. And I had this feeling wash over me, like, yeah, what has happened? And then I kind of took some time to internalize it. And it dawned on me that When I was in the middle of my radio side of things and I met my wife and she had 2 sons, I had a very, very quick and hard transition into dropping the freedom and the going out and working out every day and playing basketball and social sports every day, and I switched in and I had to become a dad. I had to be cooking dinners. Sold my motorbike and bought a Corolla so that I could get the boys around and use the leftover money to buy a set of bunk beds so that they had somewhere to sleep. Like, I had a huge transition real quick, and it felt like for the first time that there was no noise in my head. I got to lay on my bed on Sunday, and Mini-Me, I call me Mini-Me, but younger me questioned whether or not I had been using being a father as an excuse to stop my fitness or what have you, or was it that he was just a little disappointed that I'd gotten to the shape that I had got into. And that's basically that's the story.
So I think thank you for sharing. That's beautiful. When I'm working with clients, the 2 main things that I'm always wanting to get to the bottom of is what are they seeking and what are they trying to avoid? Because these go in pairs, frankly, right? So, what is the judgments that we put on ourselves or that maybe we perceive others have put on us? Again, I'm not good enough in a certain area, I'm not smart enough. And then what are we running to as a compensation or overcorrection from that, right? So for me to be able to guide this more, Mark, I'd love to know, for better or worse, looking at your actions, what do you perceive that you've been running to? And based on that, I'd also perhaps ask, you mentioned, that younger version of you, that mini-me that you called you. Love that, by the way. You said, he goes, oh, wow, we're so big. I just wonder if there's something in that language of you're big, and whether that means you're having that reach or okay, that means you're externally successful, you must be okay. So whether you start with big and whether there's something in that, like I think there might be, or whether we look at what, the pain you were running from. But I'm interested in what were you trying to avoid at that age, and looking at your actions, what have you been trying to seek?
It's funny you should ask this because I did a very comprehensive kind of scan when it was all happening, and I was wondering the same kind of things. The thing that
we're thinking, who put some mushrooms in your coffee?
Yeah. Well, that's it. I haven't had an out of body experience like this since mushrooms, so it's weird that you should have mentioned
and he
that.
shared that story, so we'll just
therapeutic benefits. Disclaimer.
Oh, they were going outside. But no, it was genuine disbelief that I had made it to do anything other than ending up on a farm or staying in Gizzy or without knowing who my parents were. Like, it was a genuine awe that I had made it out. Was the feeling I got from him when he was talking to me. And it wasn't necessarily, he didn't understand this success at all. It was just the ability,
or maybe even how you got there, or
totally. And it didn't feel like he cared. It was just, oh my goodness, you're driving that. Like,
so he's impressed by that.
Yes.
Relative to a perception or a belief of, could I ever do that? Am I good enough, etc.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what challenges, costs, trade-offs did you have to make to reach where you are now?
And I think that's where the story around
the health and fitness and
the
all
health
the
and
other
fitness
things
and
that have
stuff.
been,
Yeah. And I mean, it's been, I broke my ribs a couple of weeks ago, just trying to play a game of non-contact flag football and falling over. So I think that was quite, that resonated. I've recently been on a few running journeys and I hate running. And I think that was quite relative to him going, we used to love running kind of thing. So definitely physically, he pointed out those kinds of things, like, done really well, and how cool is that? But look what's happened to us kind of feel.
So you had this, correct me if I'm wrong, there's 2 parts to this, which is always the case. There's what I call, or what my mentor would call, complementary opposites, right? So there's 2 sides to any event, but in this instance you're saying there's that excitement, and there's almost this, wow, I'm proud of you, you've made it, but then there's the shame around what you're not valuing, or what is important, what's been lost. Okay, great. So the first thing is, can you actually appreciate or acknowledge, yourself, Mark, that those were costs or trade-offs that you made to get to where you are now. There was cost to it, of course. But you're having this reach, this impact. Yes, there's maybe refinements that we could make so that you can value yourself more in the process, of course. But can we not give you some credit here that you did what needed to be done, my friend?
Thank you. That's hard to take deep inside, but I hear you and I appreciate you saying so. But yes.
And look, I mean, obviously, if you're a client, would spend a lot more time on that. So that does.
Well, no one else matters. I'm having this free session. All the shifters can wait and listen. No,
It's so relatable.
Yes, and that was what we said, Jordan. Right? Perhaps it goes there, and there's some relatable gems. But look, I mean, oftentimes, we have to sit with that for some time, or really reflect more on the evidence in our life of you embracing these challenges in the pursuit of where you've strived to get to. And interestingly, I'm going to weave a couple of things in here. Circling back, I said before that in many regards, my average client is successful in one realm, or they've achieved this end state of where they thought they needed to be, whether it's who they thought they needed to be for themselves or who they thought they needed to be for others. And then they get there, and perhaps perhaps with a bit of luck, they might be grateful that they have got there, but oftentimes they're recognizing the way in which I've got here isn't sustainable, or it is not the full me. And that's sort of the impression that I hear from that, Mark. Perhaps perhaps that there's the storytelling and there's the success and great beautiful reach that you guys have, but still this self-minimization for yourself is part of that.
The thing that I probably have forgot to mention is my kids are now at that age where they are leaving the home.
Yeah.
So in terms of feeling successful, I'm incredibly proud of how my 25-year-old, my 18-year-old, and my 14-year-old have turned out and are turning out. Incredibly proud of that. And perhaps rather than success, because I don't feel like success is we've hit our success here. I feel like there's so much we've got to do and so on and so on. Absolutely. But in terms on the family front, perhaps that's why a younger me has arrived. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there as well. But yeah.
As Hayden's junior accomplice that he doesn't ask for, and all my learnings coming from the streets.
Yeah.
Is there a question you explore with people, maybe even with Mark right now? I'm sensing around if there was something you needed to hear. What does that sound like?
Yeah, look, I don't use that approach specifically, but that sort of inner child healing work does have a lot of value. How I would want to approach it with Mark is for Mark to become more clear on, what that, correct me if I'm wrong, what that 8-year-old self was actually judging himself for.
6-year-old, but
yeah.
Judging himself for, as in what, and he held my hand for ages.
Well, I've made a few assumptions here, right? But you said to me, it's like, wow, we've made it. I never thought we'd get here, right? And I think that idea of we never thought we'd get here. There's going to be some layers to that of I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I was adopted, whatever these.
All of those.
Okay, great. So whatever.
You just listed off my hit list.
Yeah. Okay.
My top 5 hit list.
All of those were a direct hit.
Yeah. So there's these.
So we laugh while we heal. We laugh while we heal.
I love it.
Yeah.
So look, I think first of all, can you see, Mark, that those beliefs, those questions, those self-judgments you've held on to about yourself are actually directly proportionate to what you've achieved? As in, that questioning, can I get there? How would I get there? Am I good enough? I mean, has that not been the fuel behind 100%. You building out these stories for people?
Totally, yes. Yeah, okay. Absolutely can.
So would you want to change that?
Not at all. Not
Say
at all.
that again?
Not at all. Not any part of it. I would, and the amount of times we've had questions where would you like to start afresh and forget everything and then blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I absolutely love my journey.
You're getting somewhere here, Hayden.
I love everything about it. I'm so, don't heal me in front of people. No, but I do. I love where I've come from and I love the journey and I wouldn't change any part of it at all. And that's what weirded me out about mini-me just rolling on up and saying, yeah, but don't like running now, do you? Wow, look at you, you broken down old man. Kind of was the feeling of it.
So I think, I mean, we could take this very deep or some other
Let's
directions.
do it.
So
Look at Jordan, eh?
No, here's the thing.
easy for him to say.
Can I just say, we're just going to take anything out that's too much.
Yeah.
Right? We're having the best conversation we can have. So we're right here with you, Hayden.
Okay.
We're right here
Beautiful.
with you.
So, I mean, layering some things in here, you know, if we look at perhaps the end outcome, you know, with where, you know, who is Marc at this point of your life, or at least, you know, for better or worse, what are some of these behaviours that might keep you stuck, or the areas you're not as empowered in as you love? My impression was the health and the fitness, that sort of thing. Perhaps there's also a little bit more of an identity shift now, or you know, coming as it relates to the children getting older and, you know, them not needing the father to be as actively involved, perhaps if they're going out and.
Oh, direct hit again, Hayden. That's not.
Okay.
Stop.
Another good raincoat for me.
Yep.
So the first thing is, and yes, you know, depending on where we go, we could look more into what that six-year-old version is judging himself for relative to, you know, some of those early life experiences, adoption, etc. But first of all, can you see that, just doubling down on what we said before, that those judgments that you put on yourself have resulted in you taking certain action, developing certain strengths to avoid certain pain points that has got you to where you are now, that is serving yourself, your family,
Yes,
and others.
100% I can. And you know what I just did then? I had a full circle moment where I sat there and we talked earlier about the broadcasting and how it took a broken person to be able to broadcast, and they tried extra hard. You just walked me around in a full 180, and I just looked myself in the mirror and said, you were that broken person. You were that storyteller. You still are. Well, that's embarrassing, isn't it?
Mate,
I was the broken puppy the whole along.
But it's not quickly and you can like it's the type you explained was weird how you set that up, because I'm like, I know you. It's because you're broken that you can help the broken. It's because you've been here that you don't want anyone to feel bad, and that you can share your story, and you know that you know you can put yourself out there. Or when someone you look at, like, how many callers call in, you want to look after them all the way until they exit off the phone. Like, all of that is service, right? And so you just set it up in a weird way,
Yeah.
right? But it is who you are. But it's just
And also, just quickly, but who the hell is not broken? You know, if we're to, you know, I appreciate broken's a bit of a label here, but who the hell is not broken? Who doesn't have baggage? Who isn't holding on to certain judgments or ideals or comparisons they're putting on themselves?
there's a couple people that cry on Instagram that I think they're a little bit faking. But no, I 100%.
So you know, again, it's not what happens to us; it's how we perceive it. And again, I work with some individuals, and interestingly, they can be some people I work with can be reluctant to address these deep-seated pain points or trauma, because they'll say, "Look, Hayden, compared to someone else, I've had a good life," or, you know, yes, my dad was very critical with me, or I felt I couldn't do right, but he was doing the best with the tools he had, or he didn't have a father, or, you know, whatever that is. But irrelevant. It's
good.
how we
I love
perceived
this.
it and internalized that
I love
pain.
this. Can you just say that again? Because I feel like this is such a talking point. Because I feel like people mask being able to really feel their pain because they haven't given themselves permission. Because when you've got nowhere else to go, gratitude and perspective is like Bitcoin in 2007, right? But it really it still
some of that.
It still doesn't talk to the inception point of the trauma, right?
Correct.
So can you just explain that point again? Because I think that is so important for people to grasp.
Yeah, so you know, that idea of it's not what happens to us, but how we perceive it goes both ways. So there is, as humans, we have the opportunity to challenge our perceptions and the stories we tell ourselves, like what we've started doing with Marc there, to go, actually, how did this pain serve you? You know, you've given up the health and fitness in some regards, but how did that build what you guys have now? How did that allow you to be there for your children, etc. Right? And I haven't come back to you, Marc.
Yes,
I thought we were done.
No,
we're going back.
We're just getting started. No. Go. Yes.
And he's booked you in after this for a full set. No.
I'm learning too. I love it.
So you know, we have the power to change our perception and the way that we perceive and internalize our experiences, often unknowingly, right? Often, you know, I say to clients, you know, it's very much like, you know, we go through life, we experience a pain or a pleasure, and, you know, it's almost like an iPhone. We take a screenshot of it unknowingly and we say, all right, I want more of this or I want less of this. And if it's painful, or the more painful it is, it's I never want to be in this position again. So again, who do I need to be, or how do I need to act to avoid being in that position? So circling back around to what you're saying, again, a lot of layers today, is that, the stories we tell ourselves, the perceptions that we have consciously or unconsciously internalized shape us. And there is the power to change that. But equally, getting back to your question, sorry, Jordan, almost got lost in that, is it can be easy to overlook the unresolved challenges or pain points in our own life and how they might be affecting us or keeping us in these patterns or informing our belief, because we go, well, what should I complain about? I wasn't adopted, or, again, I had a father. Yes, he was critical, but other people don't. And as much as I can appreciate there's a good degree of maybe resourcefulness and not playing the victim. So I actually respect that. And again, half the time that strategy gets us to the first point in life, if that makes sense.
It's still an avoidance.
There's a lot of great coaches that work on that level of, almost that, what are you going to do with it, and just move forward. And I respect that, and that will get us to a certain point of success, but it comes with an emotional roller coaster as well, frankly, because the more that we are looking to avoid something, the more we're seeking its counterpart, and then we're on this emotional roller coaster of this highs, lows, good, bad, good enough, not good enough.
Can you just land that in an example? Maybe can I give you one?
Sure.
Let's say a sibling that grows up and the family's lost a sibling.
Yeah.
This, by the way, guys, this example has just come to my head, but I want to land this in an example, and then you just be able to talk around just what we're talking about. And it's that whole thing of, obviously that's a pain point.
Yeah.
But that child grows up almost feeling like, well, I didn't pass away. I wasn't able to be, my plants weren't able to be watered as much as mum and dad probably would have liked because they were in pain, but for a whole mirage of reasons, there's been pain points and trauma points for them in their life, but they sit back on that avoidance or the space to be able to unpack that within themselves or get what they need to hear, because it's that whole thing with, I didn't pass away. Yeah. And I don't want to be a burden because I couldn't even imagine what it's like to lose a kid. Yeah. It just as an example, because that's what we're talking to, right? So like, let's say using that as a case study example, how would you relate what you're saying to telling someone like that if that was them,
Yeah, so when we talk about changing perspectives, changing our perception, challenging our perception and the stories that keep us trapped, because then from there again, there's this ripple effect of, again, what we need to say or who we need to do or what we avoid, based on that story, that perception, that experience. It starts with asking ourselves a different set of questions is how I would put it. So, perhaps if you had, I'm not sure surface level is the right way to put it, but if let's go with it.
We can go with another example, but you know what I mean? I'm trying to land it within that.
I don't want to sound like I'm overlooking the pain.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes it can be, and I'll go somewhere with this, Jordan, but sometimes it can be, when you have a real situation in front of you, you can work out the nuance to it a bit more. But where I'm going with that is, it would not be the full picture of that event to assume that is a net negative experience. As in, did the family now become closer through that grief? Maybe the father prioritized business and wasn't as present for his whole family, and since that pain point, since that loss, he made changes in his life. Maybe, the brother who lost his sibling, in many regards, yes, he's holding on to this pain and doesn't want to compare, but I've had many clients who have lost a sibling, and it's almost like, all right, now I need to be the one who makes my parents proud. There's a lot on me. And again, these pressures and these judgments can keep us trapped, but they just as much serve us. Right, and
it's exactly the point you're trying to make,
yeah. And so it's challenging those narratives, because conventional therapy, in many regards, you may end up sitting with someone and they will say, that's so bad, I'm so sorry, and it ends up reinforcing that same negative pain. And oftentimes that keeps people even more stuck, frankly. So we want to acknowledge the meaning and the pain,
Absolutely.
conscious or unconscious, and look at how you internalize that experience. But then it's about being resourceful with that, and again asking questions: how did that serve you? What actions would you have not taken in your life? What would have not happened in yourself, in your community, etc. If that if that loss, that grief, that event, whatever that is for the listeners, hadn't have happened.
I'm getting this picture of Neo bending the spoon. You know, and I love this chat. I love this chat. It's the layers that we took to. I really tried to give you an example, and I tried to give you kind of a groove to set in to answer that question, but it's really case by case, and what you're really speaking to is if we're only going to move linear or like when really it's so open and you can bend the spoon, right? But it's like...
Yes.
And sorry, just quickly, what I
Please.
want to say to shifters listening is that when we talk about mental health and we talk about these things like trauma, that's why I really dislike how this conversation has played out in comment sections on the internet and clippable moments on podcasts that are really there only to capture the context of driving rage and engagement. And you'll know this too, Hayden. It's so polarizing. They'll just set you up with a thing and look at that and we'll all respond. And then, these buzzwords start happening in society where we just feel like we have the right to tell people to go and heal. And it is so layered and it is so sensitive and also raw and powerful. And it's nice to talk to Hayden, someone like you, bro, in the work, in the weeds, as the amateurs that we are, just trying to navigate this through. But I want to shift the dial. I want shifters. It's so ironic that we're called the shifters because we want to shift things, and I don't want us as a society, as people out here, a part of the same tribe, to get stuck into those grooves of outcomes and conversations and. Like this is how it sounds. I'm so energized by these layers and by these comments. Yeah.
So, just to maybe add some broader context here, because I don't want this conversation to be too abstract and not as much as I love that.
No. Bring us back,
right?
brother. Bring us back now. Come on.
Someone bring us back.
I get the organ now soon.
Mark's just thinking, just don't bring him back to me.
Yeah, Mark's like, are you done with me? We're coming right back to you soon.
I'm ready.
It is these unresolved, often unacknowledged experiences and the perceptions of pain that keep us stuck in the same cycles. Because first and foremost, as humans, we're wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure.
I'm so sorry. I just had something.
Please.
It's hitting me, and it's not an original thought, and it's probably like you're just probably going to be like, yes.
Get him, Hayden.
But it's almost like, are you saying that people probably feel like the pain keeps them in the cycle, but it's really the tools and the perception they have around the pain that keeps them in the cycle and where they are.
That is absolutely correct. I mean, it is absolutely the pain that keeps them in the cycle, but the pain is driven by your perception and the story, the event, and again, I think I gave an example before, and maybe this has more context now. Maybe I can give a different example of, we can lose our job. It can be the worst day of our life. And then 6 months or 6 years later, we can look back and we go, man, that was the best opportunity. Or if I hadn't gone through that pain, I wouldn't have challenged myself to go back to school or to study. Man, I was in that toxic relationship. I got cheated on. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But actually, a couple of years later, you might say, well, you know what? I was a bit of a pushover. I was a bit of a people pleaser. I wasn't showing up as my full self, and so because of that, I got walked over. I got cheated on. Is that a bad event? Is that a bad experience? And so,
is it bad? Is it harmful for us to explore those options amongst the scenario? Like I think people are. It's almost. We're afraid to say that. Like, why can't you look at it like this?
Yes.
What would be so?
Well, look. I mean, it can be a very un-PC thing to say, and or certain depending on what someone's gone through and the sensitivity to that or the cultural norms around it. I appreciate that. But what I say to clients is, let's not get caught up in some subjectively biased morals or right or wrong, good or bad. Let's actually just ask the questions of how did your life change from that event. And, you've spent your whole life looking at the negative side of it. Why not just spend 15 minutes looking at what wouldn't have happened in your life if you hadn't have gone through that experience or that pain, or you hadn't have been cheated on, you hadn't have lost the job, you hadn't have, lost that family member? Why don't we just spend a little bit of time becoming more resourceful in that? Because the degree that there is a black and white perception of, all or none, good or bad, right or wrong, I failed, is the degree that you're going to get caught up in these patterns of never being in that position again and trying to seek its opposite. And, that's where, directing back to Marc,
yes, let's go
weave.
I paid for this session. Come on now.
Weaving all the way back is so those self-judgments, those feelings of not feeling good enough, it might be, why was I adopted? Why, what am I going to make of my life? Those pain points gave you, looking to avoid that pain, knowingly or unknowingly, gave you that drive to develop the skills, to be the father that you are, to be able to bring those stories out, both yourself and others. And so that has served you very well. And I think the first part is acknowledging that it has served you very well, which again is an un-PC thing to say. Someone else would say, oh, I'm so sorry you've gone through that, etc. But we need to look at it from both sides. But then what happens is, again, people will often contact me when they recognize that there is perhaps diminishing returns to the way it's been playing out. And I think, if we go back to using Matua as an example here, it would be that those judgments that you put on yourself developed certain strengths and coping mechanisms that have served you very well. But actually, they've served you so well that we can let those go, and we can actually create some space now, my friend, for the health, for the family, whatever that is for you now.
I have a word that I've been obsessed with for many, many years, and it's a word that I chase, and the word is contentment. I chase contentment. I want to end up in a place where I'm super happy with what I've achieved, and I'm super happy with what the result of those achievements are, the person who's standing in front of me. And as you've been talking, the image of me walking in really comfortable sneakers came to mind, but it's actually, these sneakers aren't necessarily, they've got me to where I am, but they will no longer serve me if I'm wanting to try and find contentment, was the only words that were all scrambled in my head. And that's what this feels like. This feels like, and I hope people can relate to this. And Jordan, you struck on something which you've never said before, and I hate that you hit an arrow straight to my heart. It was, I don't care putting myself out there in these kinds of situations if it helps others to hear it and see it and feel it and go through it. Like, I would love to people, the perception of people, I could walk past someone and that dude's switched on. He knows himself back to front. Like, he is so good. But I think there's a real strength in not knowing, and not being able to know, and giving it as an example for others to hear. And I hope people go, oh, that's a bit of me. I don't need to necessarily pay for an expensive session or do this kind of stuff. I can hear and I can heal and I can learn from this, and that's what this is all about. But that's the examples I had. I had the idea of arriving in this position with the set of sneakers that I've always worn. That's my motivation. Those are the things that have pushed me to get here. But if I am to feel a little more content with what I look like and who I am, and be at peace with the success and how I've got here, it feels like those sneakers, I need to experience taking them sneakers off and putting on another pair to get to that point.
That is the exact analogy that I was going to give you. Those sneakers have served you very well, but they're a little bit small, maybe a little bit smelly, maybe a little bit out of date, a little bit, not quite the latest, fashion. And so they've
getting all that way with Slazengers though, Marc. That was really good.
Thank you, Jordan.
So, they've served you very well, and those coping strategies and being able to perhaps at times minimize yourself and focus on the story or whatever that is, that will still have a place in your life moving forward. But you don't have to have those sneakers on all day, every day now, like what you wished, like what you perceived you had to be to survive, to avoid that pain as a young boy.
And that'll bring a bit of contentment my way, because there was nothing about enjoying, it's the next challenge, it's the next thing I've got to do, I've got to keep on keeping on, and that was them sneakers.
Absolutely.
And you probably get a lot of, sorry to interrupt you, probably get a lot of fulfillment. And again, I appreciate, like many of us, what we love, or our mission, our purpose in life can also be intertwined with these not feeling good enough and trying to prove ourselves. That's my average client again.
100%. That's me.
Absolutely. But again, no doubt, even though you have been carrying this pain and perhaps self-minimization in some regards, there's also been a lot of fulfillment along the way.
Very fulfilled. Yeah. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you. Enough of me. Jordan, take your clothes off.
Man, it was funny. It was funny. Yeah, put your knickers up now, Mark. Thank you. That was very vulnerable of you. Well, I was gonna go in the direction of one of the symptoms in our series around is your ambition to mask was you achieve something and you struggle to feel anything, and it just becomes, well, on to the next. You can't really, a milestone, something you've worked really hard for and should really, probably celebrate. And I was just wondering, when we brought that up, we all said, all of us three, or particularly me and Mark, we said, that's me. Like I actually know where it comes from.
Let me give you one little tidbit there, and then I want to know what comes up for you. Mark loves this, the old switcheroo.
I don't know if I want to share that.
No, you don't have to, my friend. Not at all. But what I wanted to add is again, everything we're running to or thinking will solve our problems is very often based on what we're trying to run from. And so again, the pain, the unresolved judgments or that inner critic that we hold on to, no amount of external success or the next thing is ever going to give us that fulfillment or happiness. And I tell my clients, fulfillment is, or purpose is a wiser goal than happiness, and we can come to that later if you like. But so many people struggle with that because, again, who hasn't had pain, and who, again, we're wired as humans to naturally, we have the amygdala, and the amygdala says this was a horrible event, fight or flight. I want to position myself, develop my life, develop my strengths, develop my persona in a way where I don't have to be in that position again. So no amount of present day or future success is going to be enough for that. It's actually acknowledging that pain and, like I said, challenging those narratives and looking at how that served us. That is the only way to actually turn that from pain into purpose.
Yeah, which is interesting to hear, because it's like, how are we able to burn the candle at both ends towards something that we perceive we need to do and achieve, and then get there and then just immediately go to the next thing? You know what I mean? It seems almost, it seems counterproductive. It's like, but for me, something happened many years ago when I realized that someone could just take something from me, or someone could just say something or do something, and it could affect my whole world.
Take something.
And I've never really spoke about it, and it's something definitely that I've come through and I've gained understanding on, and I'm finally grateful for it, and for the things that we've spoken about today, which is made me just have a much needed perspective on the world and myself and my connections that I needed to have. But basically, without trying to talk about it, was that painful moment for me was, you can do all this stuff, and in a moment it can just be thrown aside, and then you're left to pick up the pieces.
And that could be someone taking advantage of you, or overlooking you, or just throwing you away,
or talking about you in a way that that we've since yet to see if it's true or not. And so I think what that taught me was, I'll just run it. But in the back of my mind, it's always like, whatever peak I get to, is it really real anyway? Is this all just a
Could it get taken
game?
away?
Is it like why would I invest my emotion in celebrating and being happy?
Because there's
when
that
my experiences, someone
Yes.
can just take it away. And so I think for a long time it was definitely fear driven. I'm thankful that fear doesn't exist anymore.
Really?
It's been moved through. It's been
So Jordan, just to, and again, I'm mindful you share
Absolutely.
whatever you're comfortable sharing, but for that to be true, you would obviously perceive then that there has been a lot of benefits, growth and insights that have come from that experience where something was taken from you.
absolutely.
Great. Because that's how you transcend the fear. It's actually that you can see how that was a event that, yes, painful. Again, I'm not dismissing that. We need to acknowledge that head on. But God, if you didn't go through that event, would you have been more naive? Would you have been less self-aware? Or did you would have had a part in setting that up, my friend?
100%. And like I feel that in my bones, and I know that the changes happen because there was a point going through it where I was like, I'm never gonna think this. This is like I don't give a like this is completely unfair. Like those feelings, I was like, I don't even want that perspective.
Yeah.
Like those, you know.
Yeah.
So I definitely know that, and I'm not saying I'm not really open to other healing and other things, but it's been many years now, and I feel like this is probably something to address around, getting somewhere and allowing myself to feel it, because the perspective that I got was we're in this arena of the public. We're in this arena of having a platform, and it's what I've actually learned is that it's an exceptional responsibility to be someone that can speak into people's lives every day, in their car, on the way to work, to be able to bring happiness, joy, annoy them, bring some perspective. And that actually, it's that whole Spider-Man thing, that's actually a responsibility, and that requires a maturity that I don't think I had. And there's many temptations in this world, especially around perceived power, I think. And it's not something we talk about because it's not really that relatable. And I'm not saying we're superstars here or anything like that, but 1,000% that, and I could probably just like break right now, like but the emotion is the emotion is actually gratitude.
Bingo.
That sorry.
Stay with it.
The emotion now is gratitude for having parents that built me up enough, having friends that stood by, and
Seeing who those real friends were.
yeah, and no one left, not a single person. There was tribe, and also that God is kind and gracious.
Beautiful. And it's one thing to theoretically know some of those things, Jordan, but to have an experience, ironically through pain, probably the hardest point of your life, one of the hardest points in your life is the impression that I get, where something was taken from you, and to come out the other side of that, months, years, however long later, and go, I can see how that served me.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is it. That is the epitome of everything that we've talked about today with being resourceful and changing those perceptions.
And it feels good to be able to feel through that, and but what I haven't, if I'm being honest, I've come through so much of that, but I still don't allow myself to celebrate.
Yeah.
And it's actually something amongst my peers that I know frustrates them.
And it's very common, just quickly, with those that are successful. Frankly, I think I said that to you earlier, that it's that if I don't get the impression that this is that black and white for you, at least these days. But if there was this even small underlying fear of, well, it could get taken away, what do you need to build to make sure that it doesn't get taken away, or it is cemented, or you can stand on your own 2 feet, whatever that is. And so again, it serves you.
I do know the healing thing is I'm actually happy for whatever to be taken away. But I just don't think it's actually caught up into my real life.
Sure.
Like deep in my heart, I'm really at peace with. I think what we've done. I think particularly my role in. This is a full-on therapy session, and I love. Sorry. My part to play in that.
Mark's just like...
No, this is beautiful, bro. Yeah.
I share from my spiritual experience, and this is mine.
Yeah.
These aren't gifts that I got on my own. And I was... And so, the prayer that I prayed, the promise that I made was, show me a way, because I actually I could go work in the mines. Like, I could go get... Like, I'm actually done. So... That was a while ago, and so now, where I feel like, I've lived out these good choices, and those accumulative reps have built up, and the success that's come with that, and this beautiful life that we've created, and being able to have it with friends in business, it feels like it's ordained. It feels like it's supposed to be. So I'm actually, if something happens, it's 1,000% what's needed to happen, and I don't fear that anymore. But I don't think it's quite caught up here. I'm still the residual, way of moving. Yeah, we hit 20 million downloads the other day, and we literally like said, cool. Now I'm not saying we should go to the Sky City and jump off the bridge and hold a banner and do a big video about it. But it's that kind of example, anything, it's like, but what about the next thing? What about the next thing? And
you're not alone. I mean, talk about a relatable.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Jordan.
Thank you, brother.
No, thank you. I want to almost summarize that in a way that maybe the viewers the listeners can
please
get
make
something
it about
out of
them, please.
Avoidance pattern. Mark knows about that. Make it about him.
Mark's like, yeah, that's us.
So, I mean, first of all, what a journey I'm sure that has been for you, right? Beautiful. And I think that, again, oftentimes, months or years down the track, with a bit of reflection and self-awareness or the right prompt, we can recognize, in the crisis there can be a blessing. Or, wow, if this hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have met my partner, I wouldn't have powered myself, or I was too naive, or I was too much of a people pleaser beforehand, whatever. So it sounds like, you've been on that journey to be able to actually extract more meaning or purpose, gratitude from that event. And that's what it's all about. It's about finding meaning in the suffering. If you view it as all negative, no positive, I can guarantee that is not the case. There is no situation that is a black and white, one-sided event. Who the hell are we to assume with our naive human senses that this is the cause, this is the effect, and that's that? So through the aging process, oftentimes we have the opportunity to reflect back and challenge some of our narratives, but there's the opportunity to do that now in the present time as well. And I would imagine that you could have had an identical twin, Jordan, who could have gone through that event, and they could have said to themselves, "This is why I don't trust people. I'm going to put my guard up. I'm going to not let people in. I'm never going to allow."
I did do that.
Okay, right, sure. No, well, I believe you. But that's not where you've ended up.
Absolutely.
Right, that's not where you've ended up. And how you transcend, like I said, and turn that pain into something that can be used more purposefully is asking yourself the right questions, holding yourself accountable. Yes, acknowledging this pain, not suppressing it. Whatever we suppress will express and come out somewhere else. So it's not about, just positive thinking. We need to acknowledge that perception and the costs to that. But we also need to look at, what was our part in getting to that position, right? Again, were we naive? Were we putting our needs above others? Were we stuck in conflict avoidance, not having the hard conversations up front, which set up this dynamic where, something could be taken from you? But whether through your own growth mindset, through experiences, through many years, whatever that is, a combination, at any point, you can ask yourself, actually, what can you take away from this event that can serve you, right? And I think that's where you've got to, which is beautiful. And I think, there'll be many listeners and they might know they've had, that they've got trust issues because they've been cheated on, or they might know that they're always fearful that the next thing will be taken away because, they've lost their last 2 jobs. But to actually reflect back and be specific and really look at and create a list, write out a list. How had that event, that pain served you? And what would have not happened in your life if you hadn't have gone through that? Like I said, to the degree that we get stuck in this perception of, all bad, no good, or all pain, no growth, is the degree that we get stuck in these patterns of self-sabotage, avoidance, whatever the protective instinct, manifests like or we create. But talk about the growth that you've had from changing that perception.
Absolutely. And even saying that, it's definitely been in the last year, you know what I mean? These things, and they're still landing on, like really feeling like healing through and perspective, and these still things are landing on me. While I have here, just quickly, there's definitely a tenderness that I haven't returned to, a softness, and
just to direct you. I mean, what are the odds that again that is part of this? Something could be taken from me. It's harder to sell it. I mean, just for the purpose of your own growth here, Jordan. I mean, look. I mean, if this is on a continuum, I would say it sounds like you've processed a huge amount of that. That event, and it's really turning more into a fuel source that you can draw from and build your life out more purposefully. However, I think you would be a little bit naive to say there's not some emotional residue of fear, frankly, still left over from that event. And that's the human experience. As you've said, we're all on a journey, but to the degree that the walls are up, and to the degree that perhaps you struggle to be grateful or celebrate, what you and the boys are building, I think is the degree that there's still a little bit of that fear. And by the way, one thing we haven't discussed yet is, as much as in my work, I'm always interested in, what is the why? Why are we stuck? What is that root cause? Which would be maybe a good analogy here. In many instances, we're talking about a multitude of life events that stack, that we put together and we say, look, for these 3 reasons, each different times of my life, I can't trust people. Or for these 3 or 4 different reasons, things always get taken from me. So, perhaps it sounds like you've become a lot more resourceful in challenging the way that you saw that event, but there is very likely other events that you've previously used to reinforce that belief that things might get taken from you. And so perhaps even reflecting on some of those other events where things were taken, or you weren't valued, or something was lost, and applying some of this, the reflections you've had here historically and today, and go, okay, so let's just do the finishing touches. This other event here when my best friend was taken from me by the popular kid or the girl, whatever that was. How did each of those events serve you in your growth and where you are now? Because it's not always one event; it's multiple events that stack together.
This is really starting to and don't get it wrong. Like really good, Jordan, he gave you homework. He didn't give me homework. You have to write a list.
Oh no, I got some homework for you after that. I'll get from the streets of my.
We're sending notes.
I just quickly. Because we've spoken for so long, and you probably need to go.
I'm good.
Just getting off the track of Mark and me now, because wow, vulnerable. Thank you for that. Thank you for sitting that and that with me too, and you too, Mark. I love this stuff. It's so good. there's definitely one more question I'd like to unpack to kind of to put out there, but I'm just trying to like sense what would be the most helpful. So maybe not in a generic sense, but like you have the platform now to speak to our audience and as it, you know, suggest, you know, what we've kind of been talking around, all the mental health stuff. What is something? I used to speak in schools. I used to speak around New Zealand. I used to go around the high schools and do health talks. It's called Attitude. And we'd always have these training days between each other, and we'd have a speaker come in, someone give us perspective. And I always remember this question we got asked, which was like, if you could step up on a stage and you had a microphone that had every teenager in the world was listening and they were able to hear one thing you had to say, what is it you'd want them to hear and to know and to feel? It's kind of that buzz, but like, and I know that sounds like such a, oh, cool.
What's the one thing?
Yeah, because it's not one thing, right?
Yeah.
But I think about the world right now. I think about if I'm using my heart, I'm using my head, and I think about society, there's a lot of dissonance, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of what am I supposed to think, what am I supposed to feel, what is my future like? There's the turning of the tides in industry, in the financial system. COVID, I still think we don't acknowledge enough of the ripples from COVID.
Absolutely.
And what that did to households and relationships and to families and to people's professional lives. And we could go into more about that, but I don't want our sponsors to leave it. No,
I was just going to say that. Might get labelled misinformation.
We good. But, you know, this kind of fear-based thing we're kind of going through, the floor is yours. What am I even asking?
All the best.
What's something to kind of wrap up this chat that I think people can hold in perspective and hold in hope and hold in joy and leave this podcast in their car or walk into work feeling like, man, don't know what the hell those two are up to, but I guess that was helpful. But that last thing he said, I can use that. No.
I think I see where you're going with that. I'll give you two.
I love it.
I'll give you two. So one is any area that you're not empowered in, you'll be overpowered by someone else.
Whoa. Let me hit that.
Hang on a minute.
Let that hit the heart. Any
area that you're not empowered in, you will be overpowered by someone else. And I say that from the perspective of not about that you have to desperately, hold on to this control and force narratives, because many of us are caught up in that as part of this pain avoidance. But to recognize that, again, rather than being a victim to the pain and the patterns and the short-sighted coping strategies we're in, to recognize that, we have a part in our outcomes in life. And if we don't empower ourselves purposefully and take action on what we truly value, if we truly value something, then we'll just be, overpowered by someone else. We'll be told what to think, what to do, what to believe, etc. And ultimately, that takes us away from who we are and what gives us a sense of purpose. So any area that you're not empowered in, you'll be overpowered by someone else. And we could probably, we could relate that.
Absolutely.
No doubt we could relate that straight back to something being
workplace.
Yep. I was going to say back to your story without going into it with, where were you disempowered leading up to something being taken away from you, right? And we don't have to go into that, but you see what I mean there. So any area where you're not empowered, you'll be overpowered in. And the other one would be, in the absence of purpose, we distract ourselves with pleasure. Or in the absence of purpose, in that clear vision of what we value, who we are, we tend to default back into these more primitive, avoiding pain, seeking pleasure mechanisms. We haven't gone into it.
Is that an epidemic you're finding around, well, even doom scrolling, right? Our phones, internet.
I think
accessibility to
Yeah.
avoid things that are hard is easier.
My initial response was going to be no, that it's the human condition that if we don't have a clear purpose or passion driving us forward, then we just default back into the short term. What do I need to avoid? and what do I need to seek, right? Pain, safety, or comfort. So my initial thought was going to be, well, that's just the human condition, for better or worse, and we're on this beautiful journey to learn how to, integrate or embrace these challenges of life so that we can grow and get clear on our purpose or mission and empower ourselves, is what I believe. But, just talking this out, I guess I would see where you're going with that being an epidemic, in the sense that, we all have, we're all glued to our screens, etc. And as part of that, we're constantly comparing ourselves to, other people's values, other people's priorities. We see the highlight reel. We see, oh, wow, Jordan's, got this platform, whatever. People don't see the challenges, the pain, the loss, all of that you've had to endure to get here. So, I mean, certainly, we would say that is a challenge in the sense where it sort of drives our focus or our comparisons to a certain way, which isn't really honouring who we are and what we value. Interestingly, I mean, we haven't touched on it today, and maybe that's something for another time. But a lot of my work, in addition to almost a bit of good old-fashioned psychoanalysis, what's going on, why are we stuck, right? Where is that coming from? What are the experiences? The other big part of my work is getting people clear on their own values and purpose, and so they can have a stronger, clearer contrast, you could say. It's almost, this is the pain or the trauma that I've been through, and this can be the short-sighted patterns I can get into to prove myself, or etc. But actually, I'm aware of that, and maybe like yourself, Jordan, that's a work in progress, and maybe I could do some focused work on that. But I'm a work in progress. But actually, these are my values. This is what gives me purpose, right? And I think, if we go back to yourself or Mark today, you probably both share this in common, is as much as we all have these pain points, these insecurities, these fears, that unchecked, we can disproportionately build our life around never being in that situation, which can keep us stuck. There is also a real purpose intertwined with that somewhere as well. And I really get the sense that with both of you boys, where it's, it's the reach, it's changing people's lives, it's, weaving in those deep dives that we were joking about before the show. And so taking the time to really connect with, truly what gives you energy, what do you love to learn about, where are you at your absolute best? Not who do you think you need to be for others, or to avoid some of these short-sighted pain avoidance strategies that we get caught up on. So becoming more conscious of what might be influencing us, in the past experiences and the trauma, but also taking the time to be more conscious of actually what do we truly value, and redirecting ourselves towards something more purposeful, as opposed to getting caught up in the pain.
Well.
Hayden, hey, bro, I hope...
I tried to wrap all that up.
I seriously, I hope that was so well done. I hope this is one of many conversations we have over the years in our time. It's a gift. It's a gift how you deliver what you do, bro. I've sat with many people. I listen to a lot of people. And thank you for your time and the space today we should probably give you a call after this. But I think what's really important is for people to hear us share, and us not even, we always say it, and this is how we mask, any responsibility for anything bad we say, but we say, we're not here to get to the answers, but maybe better questions.
Absolutely.
And that's been a great insurance policy for us, eh?
Yep.
But I already know what we're going to do next. We're going to have a huge goal setting, and we're going to talk about drive and get into goals and all of that stuff. But today, thank you for your time, bro. And I know that our people will really appreciate it too. But more importantly, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure. And thank you, Mark, as well.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Mark.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hayden. Truly amazing. And I've had so many conversations when I grew up through the adoption process and what have you. I chose to as well, go to many, many psychologists. And very rarely do I talk to somebody who I have an experience with, like I did today, where you just threw a couple of little guidelines out there, and I kind of found my way around to where it was that I was needing to go. I think that's a real skill set that people can underappreciate or not even notice in conversation. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping me with mini-me, and also with my goal to find contentment, and also listening to you talk to my one of my bestest in the entire world, and Jordan, and watching that happen too. I know now to make sure that to bring back the things that I've stolen from the studio, because now there's an extra bit of zest there when it comes to Jordan seeing the sneakers that I took. But no, I will return them. But thank you so much for your time. A real true gift. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, boys.
And let's also have a shameless plug here. Do you like, if people want to go on your page, what is it on Instagram? Is there, do you do sessions?
Thank
Can
you.
people,
Yeah, thank
if they're like, wow, I actually would love to talk to, book something?
Thank you. So,
Absolutely.
Yes. So obviously,
Because it's free for us today, man.
Yes. So look, the easiest way would be, so I have a website, haydenbrown.co.nz. I obviously do work with clients one-on-one. That's what I'm most passionate about, because it means, for me, I love the stories, I love the analogies, but what, we talked about values today, purpose. What drives me the most is that problem solving, getting to the bottom of things. So I'm deeply inspired to work with people one-on-one. Interestingly, like you boys, I've recently actually started my own podcast, probably literally only 7-8 weeks ago.
Awesome, bro.
Yeah,
Awesome.
So I appreciate everything that's involved in it. So look, I guess all I'd say is if you're listening to this and any of this resonates, it is a journey to understand yourself. But check out my new podcast, Breakthrough, with Hayden Brown, and I'd love to have you as part of that journey on self-discovery.
Absolutely. Check it out, team.
This is The Shift. The Shift.
Go home, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go home.
The Morning Shift.
I'm going to make him an offer again with you.
The Shift.
I love you.
This is The Shift.